Greetings, travelers, and welcome to DracoBreach Reviews E3 2021. I know I've had a bit of an absence, but I'll explain that in an upcoming State of the Channel video, as well as future plans. Similar to my E3 2019 review, I'll touch upon my personal highlights with general impressions of each company's overall presence. As an aside, I relied on the official E3 schedule from ESA to build my initial review draft. Once again, Sony was absent from E3, and at this point, I don't know why. I don't think they feel any need to avoid the controversy of resisting crossplay or forcing additional censorship. They can easily put their state of play on the E3 schedule in the same way Nintendo puts their Direct. Regardless, I'd rather move on. I don't know that I've ever introduced my criteria for enjoying an E3 showcase. Technically, E3 stands for Electronic Entertainment Expo, or E3. It's not necessarily all about video games, but most who tune in are interested in video game news, especially trailers and developer insight into newly announced titles. That said, I am here for everything video games. I like a good pace with multiple trailers and games on display. I prefer some breaks from trailers to show gameplay and give some information, some flavor and momentum to the presentation. A little showmanship, a love of games is welcome. On the other hand, I do not like back-patting, displays of pure ego, or look at our graphics. That out of the way, let's move on to the first day. Ubisoft kicked things off, and frankly, it wasn't that great of a start. The presentation was pretty boring, and there was a lot of pointless drifting. I'll start with the bad. They didn't have many new or upcoming games and showed a lot of DLC for games that have been out for a while. I think it's fine to talk about DLC to some extent and show roadmaps for continuing support, but at some point, it just doesn't look good. Speaking of not looking good, Ubisoft talked about new and renewed television series and movies. I actually looked forward to something I hated. Ubisoft's annual release of something dance, current year, whatever. Regardless, I'd rather move on to something that's at least interesting. I'm not personally interested in rhythm games, and that includes Rocksmith. I personally don't know what to think of a subscription service gamification of learning to play guitar, but I think Rocksmith Plus can find an audience. Not for me, but at least it was new. Not really a game, though. As for trailers for new and upcoming games, there were 3. I'm not really interested in FPS or multiplayer-focused games, but Ubisoft had some good trailers and gameplay presentations for Far Cry 6 and Rainbow Six Extraction. These presentations were actually fun to watch and showed some showmanship. However, I was most interested in and impressed by the third game. Ubisoft announced Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I enjoyed Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and I'm looking forward to Sparks of Hope. The presentation was fun, gave a decent taste of gameplay in an alpha state, and showed off some great music scored by returning artist Grant Kirkhope. I smiled the entire time, and the developers obviously showed their passion. They want to develop the game, and they enjoy working with Nintendo on their mascot franchise. As much of a relief as 3 great presentations were, the overall showcase really wasn't good. To the Mario plus Rabbids team, I want to give an A. To the overall Ubisoft showcase, I have to give a D. The next and last showcase for day 1 was Gearbox. And they were there? I don't know where to start with Gearbox. They had a presentation for one game. I think they announced the second game. However, they spent the vast majority of their showcase on a very bad joke and a movie. Let me say again, they had one presentation to to their entire showcase for an upcoming game. I liked that presentation, and I am interested in the game. I genuinely am thinking about getting Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. However, that can't save the disaster that was the Gearbox showcase. Full stop. F. E3 Day 2 opened with the Microsoft Showcase. I suppose it was technically titled Xbox and Bethesda, but that implies they were trying to sell the Xbox console. Which, as I repeatedly say, they failed to do. When all Xbox games must also be made for Windows PC, it makes it a hard prospect for me to care. With Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation 5, exclusives on those consoles absolutely help me branch out into non-exclusives on those consoles for multi-platform games. However, I digress. Let's focus on the showcase. The Microsoft Showcase was fun, but I have some problems with it. Don't get me wrong. It had a great pace, but I felt the entire showcase was a trailer reel with no pause between to give viewers information. In short, very few games got presentations. I'll get to those games in a moment because I have some complaints, mostly around Bethesda's portions. The worst trailer belonged to Bethesda with Outer Worlds 2, which was a tongue-in-cheek non-announcement. If they wanted to let fans know it was coming, a splash screen saying it was in development or something would have been better. It would have accomplished the same thing in just a few seconds instead of wasting over a minute. Bethesda also had a new game and a new in-engine trailer for Starfield. I'm interested in learning more about this game. See a gameplay or story trailer. Instead, we get a theoretical look at what the game could look like based on the engine. No idea if the assets will be in the game, no idea how the game will play, no idea how the story might unfold. What was the point of including Bethesda as a major titled player in this showcase? Regardless, I want to move on. Microsoft had 3 dedicated presentations. 2 were great, and the third was... Let's start with that one. Forza Horizon 5 had a fairly lengthy presentation. There was some good information, but they did something I despise. They spend a lot of time effectively saying, "Look at our graphics." As in, and this is the kind of a key point here, they literally said you can count the spines on a cactus. This is annoying. Bad. Still, I really enjoyed the presentation for Halo Infinite and Sea of Thieves. True, only one is an upcoming game, but that doesn't change the fact that these presentations were very well made with some excellent showmanship. Let me also get this straight. I have zero interest in either game. Doesn't change enjoying what was on display. The titles that interest me the most are Hades, Psychonauts 2, Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, and Eiyuden Chronicles Rising. I have the physical cartridge of Hades on Switch, so I'm good there. However, doesn't change that I like the option for more players. The latter 3 I'll likely get on PS5 because I'm pretty sure none are exclusive to Microsoft. Overall, the Microsoft Showcase was very good. It wasn't spectacular. I just feel it was a bit shallow, too much of a trailer reel. Taking everything into account, I think B- is more than fair. Square Enix followed Microsoft, and it was an interesting showcase. In my opinion, they had some nice presentations. Unfortunately, Square Enix also built up some hype and excitement, only to pull the rug out from under fans. I think I'll start there. I think most know exactly the presentation I'm talking about when I say it was a rug pull. I had just finished writing out Final Fantasy 1 through 6 in all caps in my notes. I was about to write Pixel Remake compilation, when they announced what it was. They are making my favorite games in the Final Fantasy franchise for mobile and Steam again. They already put poorly made remakes on mobile and Steam, and now they are going to do it again, but as pixel perfect remakes? If they had at least made those games a compilation for Switch, PS5, and Xbox Series, it would have felt like it was an exciting and legitimate announcement. Instead, they were making games with controls that will very likely be ruined by mobile, much like the previous remakes. Regardless, I've said my piece on the matter. Although, speaking of ruined, how about Babylon's Fall joining the known live service dumpster fire that includes Marvel's Avengers? That was yet another rug pull, as the announcement had made me interested up until live service was mentioned. I'm sure mentioning Marvel's Avengers brought to mind another game Square Enix announced. Not only is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy a newly announced game, but it was the longest presentation at the showcase. I think it was necessary to assuage fears of another live service game because it appears it's a single-player game that avoids that pratfall. I'm interested, but I'm going to wait on reviews and a potential price drop before picking it up for PS5. Oh, it's coming to Switch as a cloud service game. Not interested. Still, only one other game really caught my attention. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is a ground-up reimagining of the original Final Fantasy from NES. I'm interested and will definitely keep an eye on it. I hope it turns out well. Originally, I wanted to give Square Enix a better score, but the two rug pulls really put a damper on things. Still, I can't deny that I had some fun watching the showcase, so C- feels fair. Normally, I can't stand the PC gaming show. It's filled with ads, one-note trailers, and non-stop yammering. This year, I didn't hate it. The yammering was replaced with, as the saying goes, cringe-inducing jokes. There were still ads, but actually fewer, though admittedly there were forced pop-ups baked into the videos, so YouTube Premium couldn't stop them, or AdBlock Plus. Perhaps most importantly, there were more trailers with actual variety to genres. Admittedly, it felt like a trailer reel, so it was shallow. However, it wasn't a complete disaster, and I think deserves a D+. I'm going to start my review of Day 3 with two items that were on the schedule that were not showcases. Verizon and Take-Two Interactive were on the schedule and had nothing to show. Not even going to grade them. Speaking of not grading, I'd next like to bring up Mythical Games. Their showcase sent red flags flying in my head. As in, what they presented felt like a scam, and I wonder why ESA even gave them a platform to advertise on. I hope I'm just being paranoid, but absolutely nothing about Mythical Games gives me confidence. But let's move on from the worst E3 had to offer to something that, almost surprisingly, could be promising. Intellivision introduced a companion console, to paraphrase them. They explicitly stated they don't want to compete with Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft. They want to coexist in your entertainment room, and the console name even implies that, Amico. There were some design decisions that I like and some that I don't. It was a short showcase that didn't outlive its welcome. C- sounds fair. The Indie Showcase followed Microsoft and PC showcases as more of a trailer reel. I think now is a fair time to explain why I don't like this trend. When I was writing notes, the titles for most games were followed by either "I'll keep an eye on it" or "What is this?" Without giving information on the games, I wasn't even sure what genre several games fell into. Sure, I like the looks of several games, and I'm honestly interested in Frontier Falling, Alliance of the Sacred Sons, and Terra Invicta. Overall, the indie showcase was over a little too quickly and lacked depth. It at least wasn't painful, so I think C- is fair. I'll admit, heading into the Freedom Games showcase with trepidation after Mythical Games. However, I was pleasantly surprised. It was a competent and actually kind of fun to watch. I think the major downsides were the lack of PR experience and distracting discrepancy in audio and video equipment quality, but the developer gave information on their games and showed at least some degree of passion. The games I am personally most interested in are Dreamscaper, Koromon, Dark Deity, One Lonely Outpost, and Anucard. The best part? These games are from a variety of genres. Koromon is a monster collecting and fighting RPG, like Pokemon. Dark Deity is a strategy RPG, like Fire Emblem. One Lonely Outpost is similar to Rune Factory, with colony building. I was pleasantly surprised. More importantly, I'm stunned to say that this may well be the best showcase so far. Freedom Games, I hope you don't disappoint, because this showcase earned a B. Capcom closed out day 3 of E3, and they didn't announce anything new. Still, they had some depth to show for several of their upcoming games. I skipped out the worst part when Capcom covered their esports offering. They showed off roadmaps for Resident Evil Village and Monster Hunter Rise, including the soon-to-launch Reverse multiplayer for Village. I might pick up Rise, but I'm not typically interested in horror games. Still, nice to see how Capcom will support these games going forward. I'm personally interested in both upcoming games they had presentations for. Great Ace Attorney Chronicles and Monster Hunter Stories 2 Reigns of Ruin. I may be biased because I'm looking forward to these games and want to see more on them. Still, there were no new announcements, making it feel very sparse. It was very informative on what it did have, so C- overall. Nintendo opened day 4 of E3, and I will never hide that I'm a Nintendo fan. They hold the most franchises that I follow intently. My favorite franchise is The Legend of Zelda, and Nintendo owns both Monolith and Intelligent Systems, my favorite RPG and SRPG developers, respectively. Now, I say all that to shatter expectations. I walk into every E3 showcase with zero expectations. I give everybody an equal chance. Hence, even a franchise that I have zero interest in can impress me with a good presentation, like Halo Infinite. I also hold the same grading standards for every showcase, so I think some of you can already guess how I felt coming out of the Nintendo E3 Direct. I'll start, as with the other showcases, with the weakest part, and it might surprise some. The Super Smash Bros. Ultimate reveal for Tekken's Kazuya wasn't as impressive as previous reveals. Now, I am not saying that because Tekken doesn't deserve a spot or Kazuya is a bad character. I'm saying it because the reveal didn't seem to have the same level of mystery, build-up, and celebration as previous reveals. For example, I'm not a fan of King of Fighters, but the Terry Bogard reveal was great. It was a celebration of Neo Geo and the King of Fighters franchise. With Kazuya's reveal, even I was, oh, the Tekken guy, before I saw his face with near zero knowledge about the franchise. Am I the only one who felt like other reveals were cleverer? Well, I think it's time to move on. Nintendo had a strong showcase with plenty of trailers, and they weren't shy about sharing information. I can't even say that any presentations were particularly bad. There were plenty of genres on display, and Nintendo indeed kept the promise of something for everybody. I'm going to keep things short. I'll only bring up games that personally interest me because that will keep us here for long enough as it is. To start, there are some remakes and or ports of interest. I liked Dragon Ball Z Kakarot despite its flaws, so I might pick it up when it launches on the Switch. The port of Fatal Frame 5, Maiden of Blackwater, again reduces the number of unique titles for the Wii U, but I hope a physical cartridge releases in North America. I was also surprised to see that Tecmo Koei convinced Nintendo to allow a multi-platform release. Still, I'm targeting it for a Nintendo Switch purchase. Super Monkey Ball, Banana Mania, and Danganronpa Decadence are worth keeping an eye on. I'm definitely thinking about picking them up. Mario Party Superstars may be the first game in the Mario Party franchise I pick up since Mario Party 2 on the N64. However, there is one remake I am absolutely going to pick up. Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. It really looks good. Definitely one of the best trailers of E3, in my opinion. There are 3 upcoming new third-party games that I have to mention. I am looking forward to Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin, but they were at other events. They were kept brief, but they were still nicely informative. Now, I'm extremely excited for Shin Megami Tensei 5. Which finally got a release date. Personally, I've always preferred SMT over the spin-off Persona franchise, partly because they are very similar except for the time-limiting feature of the latter. Still love both, and I will obviously pick up Shin Megami Tensei 5. I'm going to save the best 2 trailers for last and start with the 3 Legend of Zelda announcements. First of all, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity's first DLC was shown, titled Pulse of the Ancients. The DLC adds a playable Guardian and Nunchuck and a Master Cycle as a weapon for Link and Zelda, respectively. It also adds a new difficulty, challenges, and stronger enemies. There was the obligatory trailer for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, which I am looking forward to, and wonder how well the Switch Joy-Cons will work with the game. Then the 35th anniversary item. I know some were disappointed that the special edition Game & Watch was it, but I wonder if certain events prevented them from making a compilation to rival Mario 35th in a reasonable amount of time. Still, I am interested in that Game & Watch. Now, finally, my favorite 2 trailers of E3 2021. I'll start with the game announced previously, the tentatively titled The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. The game is still in development, but the trailer showed some gameplay and gave a release window. Well, a release window Nintendo is aiming for. The trailer left me wanting more. I want the game in my hands, but I am willing to wait to make sure the skies over Hyrule are as fun to explore as the ground from the previous game. I also like how Nintendo plays with fans. It's showmanship in how the video is cut and wrapped. It's a present and an enigma. How is Link doing that? Why is Link's arm like that? What's up with, supposedly, Ganondorf? Where does Zelda go? When can I have this game? Moving on. Nintendo had one big surprise, and it was dropped dead center in their showcase. My favorite sci-fi game franchise is getting its first new story entry in 19 years. The adventures and exploits of Samus Aran continues with Metroid 5 Dread. And I cannot even begin to describe how I felt during the presentation. I felt goosebumps run up and down my arms as I saw that number, and then the title drop. The title has been circulating since the DS was Nintendo's primary handheld. It was the anticipated sequel to Metroid 4 Fusion. Unlike the Metroid Prime trilogy and Metroid Other M, it continued the story. It wasn't a spin-off, It wasn't a prequel. It was the next adventure. And it's here. Sakamoto tapped Mercury's Steam to remake Metroid 2 Return of Samus as the excellent Metroid 2 Samus Returns, and he was happy enough to give them his 15-year-long project. Metroid 5 Dread is here, and it launches in October of this year. What excites me most about Metroid 5 Dread is how big of a push Nintendo is giving it. They are pushing it as the tentpole title of the Switch in 2021. They are treating the game like a big deal, and they want fans and newcomers alike to hear about it and head out to check it out. I know I am, and I am extremely excited. Overall, Nintendo had a stellar showcase. It was fast-paced and informative. It had showmanship and a wide variety of interesting titles and genres. As always, I enjoyed the Treehouse event afterwards, though I'll admit I was hoping for a sneaky new trailer like in past years. I can't say anything besides how satisfying it was. Not perfect, but certainly excellent. Nintendo pulled off an A in my opinion. Bandai Namco was on the schedule for one game. It was House of Ashes, which is a horror game that I'm not really interested in. Why were they even on the schedule? Even if they had no new games to announce, they have a release schedule they could have put out trailers for and given some more information on. I'd like additional information on 2 upcoming Switch ports, or Scarlet Nexus, or some update on Digimon Survive. Even a repeat of Tales of Arise information from the Tales of event would have been welcome. What even was this? F. The E3 schedule was closed out by a fairly new Chinese publisher, Eureka Studio, formed in 2019, and it was fairly one-note. They presented like 3 genres of games. They had a couple of roguelikes, some simulation resource managers, a detective game, and something. I guess one of the roguelikes, Loopmancer, looked interesting. Nothing else really caught my attention. The pacing was all over the place, and they did try to explain each of their games to varying degrees of success. D-? And now it's time for my final impressions. E3 2021 was an interesting ride. It had a few ups, but it also had many downs and many baffling decisions. It's nothing new to E3, let's just be honest. Every company has brought their A game, and every company has left spectators baffled and confused. However, I have never seen such wasted potential. Forget Nintendo's weird Wii music spectacle. Forget Sony drunkenly asking for support for their floundering PS3. Forget Microsoft's weird car show. E3 2021 had a potential scam company and several companies on schedule with nothing to show. Maybe it's been an unusual year, but multiple companies looked at the worst of the big 3 and took that as a challenge. Not the best look. If I were to grade E3 2021 overall, it would be a D+, with the absolute highlights being Nintendo, Microsoft, and Freedom Games. However, even a bad showcase has the chance to deliver a spectacular trailer and presentation for a game. I hope I've done a good job highlighting some of the best presentations the various scheduled showcases contained. However, ranking my favorite presentations cannot be objective. For example, I objectively know the Halo Infinite presentation was better than the Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp presentation. But I love Advance Wars, and I don't particularly care for Halo. Therefore, I'll just throw it out there. The first 2 titles are tied for first: Metroid 5 Dread and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. tentative. Number 3, Shin Megami Tensei 5. 4, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. 5, Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin. 6, Mario plus Rabbids, Sparks of Hope. 7, Mario Party Superstars. 8, Halo Infinite. 9, Far Cry 6. 10, Sea of Thieves. And that's it. That is my review of E3 2021. I hope it was informative. I hope anybody who agrees or disagrees with my assessment comments down below. It's always good to get a conversation starting. Anyway, I do hope that you like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, this will be DracoBreach reporting out. God bless and safe travels.